All right, getting started. Doing the usual disclaimer of if you're watching this VOD. Usually takes a little bit before things start popping off. So, because I don't spend a lot of time going through and editing after we do one of these live streams, we basically just post the raw VOD up on YouTube. Feel free to skip ahead. Just scroll ahead. You should be able to see the chat at the bottom of the screen. You'll see when things start happening. So apologies for that, but you get what you pay for. You have to do a little bit of work yourself. I'm sorry. If you do the work and you enjoy the VOD, be sure to subscribe. Hit like, tell your friends about it. Today we're probably going to be doing some brainstorming. There was a nice discussion in Discord about starting experiences in MMOs. So, and Belfaster or somebody had asked why haven't we, or no, I think he said like RIP brainstorm sessions or something, and I was like, what? We're not done with brainstorm sessions. We just haven't had one in a while. So, yeah. I am going to sit here and get comfortable for a minute. I may get up and make an iced coffee in a few minutes once everybody's in here, just because I am pretty low energy today. So yeah. It is Thursday, May 19th, 2022. And yeah. Waiting for people to show up. Grimlock, good morning. Pat has said I can relate, just chugged a monster. I wish I had something like that. I really do need to grab another coffee. I went down to the garden. The garden's about 1.6 kilometers from the apartment, and until I get the new bike, I'm getting a cargo bike since we don't have a cargo bike that I can load the dog on and a bunch of other crap, and just bike down there. And then Jasmine, when she gets off work, she can hop on her bike and come down as well. But in the meantime, it's 1.6 kilometers there and the same amount back, oddly enough. And it's tiring for the dog and it's tiring for me because it's a bit warmer than he's used to. It's not very warm here, but it's definitely warmer than we're used to. It's not bad for a nice walk. Lugging stuff, probably not that fun. Yeah, and he's kind of a wild little dog as well. So whenever he sees other dogs, he wants to chomp them and pounce on them and play with them and stuff. And so it can make things a little bit tiring. And yeah, carrying shit like fences and bags of mulch and all of that other stuff, it doesn't work very good. Let me check this folder and see. Basically, I've got the background just pointed to a folder, and I wanna make sure that it's randomized playback loop. Get done there. Let me see what all is in this folder. There should be plenty. Where did I put it? Desktop, of course. Hey, Bunny. Hey, Dram. So yeah, slowly getting started today. Went to the garden this morning to basically set up some slug trap. Some beer-based slug traps, because we still had some beer left over from the other day. So the slugs can stop eating our damn our little seedlings that we put out. So the background is not showing all of the images that are in here. I wonder what's up with that. You need motivation to work out this morning and this isn't helping? You can't work out while watching us, Zoidberg? I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the slides in the background here. So it's pointed to that directory. Are these different image types? Is it not reading certain image types? Does it not load images of a certain size? What's going on here? Let's look at details. Well, they're mostly PNG, some JPEGs. The things being shown, let's sort them by size. It can't be a size issue. What else could this be? Oh, there's a new one. Alright, so that was new. Maybe it's just really bad at randomizing. So we'll stop randomized playback. And we'll see what happens. So we've got the deep dwarf concept just popped up. We got the deep elf concept that just popped up. Hey Enoch, what's going on? Good morning. Hey Keith. Deep gnomes. Trying to see if this will loop through everything back there. Dwarves. Alphonse, what's up? I am not familiar with that anime that you just referenced. Or at least I don't believe I am. Yes, I don't know what's going on with this. I guess I could always just figure it out off stream. It's just background for now. I've got another thing that we can bring up. Google Doc screen. To, you know, if we want to potentially do a brainstorm today, have a discussion and record some notes today. Yeah, this is weird. It's just pointing to a directory on my desktop. So I don't know why it wouldn't be loading everything in it, but it's not. I'm gonna keep poking at it. Oh well, I tried. There's so many images in here. It'd be rad to see them, but for whatever reason, Streamlabs does not seem to want to show you. So I don't know what to tell you. While this is, or while people are popping in for the day, I guess I can load Unity. Good morning, Nicodemus. So I'll load up Unity. Maybe run around for a minute, wait for people to come in. I'll be curious to see if some of the people that were talking in Discord about the new player starting experience, I wonder if they're going to actually be here today to discuss new player starting experience. Hey Justin, what's going on, buddy? You guys wound up switching topics in Discord. What are you having for breakfast, Justin? But he said she just started playing Baldur's Gate a bit the other day and kind of liked how terrifying magic is. Feel free to elaborate. Justin said he's making bacon. I can't figure out if my stomach's just gurgling because it's unhappy or if maybe I'm hungry. But he says, seeing a wizard means one or all of your characters is going to end up CC for like 20 seconds and or immediately jibbed. Now I get what you mean by terrifying. Let's see. Let me... Cool. We got this. Let me hop in here. What do I have planned today? Seek and Destroy asks. Well, I was curious to see how many people from Discord that were discussing new player experience, like, in particularly the, what starting gear should you have, level of direction, etc. I'm curious if those people are going to show up today and if we should discuss some of that. Ethan Schulman, thank you for the follow. Where am I? Oh, I ran all the way out here. Okay. Run back towards the city. The newbie yard here, it's so big. I'm gonna have to sit with Nick and whoever else is interested, but sit with Nick and then maybe talk about the layout of the newbie yard a bit and size and all of that, and then get that hammered out so that we can consolidate the shaded dunes and consolidate shaded dunes in Night Harbor and get basically finally pull the band-aid there. I was just waiting for more of Night Harbor to come online before we did it, but at this point I think it's fine. Ethan asked, what are you using, or are you using a network library? I believe we're using lightnet lib. That is Ollie's domain, but I think I've been asked enough and responded enough that that's accurate. Bunny said we need a dangerous roamer. Yeah, we need a dangerous roamer. We've discussed some different ideas as well for like day-night variations on roamers and stuff, but first step is just looking at the layout and getting worked through, and then merging shaded dunes as needed, along with then I guess chopping off old Night Harbor. Go by the bizarro corpse stack that Nick left. So I haven't caught up on the VODs from the stuff that you've been working on, Harrison. Neither you, well, basically none of the other VODs. Is there something new in here we should be checking out? What time is it in here? 4 a.m. Alright, so not much longer before we have the sun come up. Flesh Golem is a dangerous non-roamer. Disgusting. The garrison has had a lot of updates over the past few days. Not 100% finished though. Alright, let me head over there. So we were discussing, what, a couple days ago now? Or no, I guess it was yesterday. So one of the things that I was really hoping to see, man, it's dark in here, is basically getting the character work that we've been doing to a more final state through the rest of the month. So I'm gonna update the roadmap over the weekend, the public-facing roadmap. Those of you that haven't seen it, if you go to our website, if you look at FAQ, there's a link there. And so want to get that updated with some info over the weekend. Weather's supposed to be kind of crap, so this should be a perfect time to do that kind of thing. The update will basically let folks know that the focus for the rest of the month for the bulk of the team is just working on resolving some of the character stuff that we've started but haven't finished. So it'll be hammering out some of the remaining customization work, like being able to select and customize your face and other appearance elements on character create. Then going into game, we want to make sure that we've got everything hammered out for robes in the various mesh changes related to armor. All of the UVing and sort of texture mappings working well. I need to put this floating bug, the fact that we're floating again, on that list, so that way we can see just how small the gnome is. And I mean, there are a number of other things in there. Attachments like backpacks, quivers. We want to experiment with whether or not we can support bags and books and scrolls and potions and stuff on the like various attach points around the waist. and see what that does to animations and clipping. Backpacks, cloaks, all of that. So there's a bunch of stuff on the list that we still need to knock out for player and player customization. So thought was, what if we went all hands on deck, you know, as it applies, and see if we can just push through that over the next couple of weeks. Hey Cubby, thank you for the follow. Yeah, he is going fast. Did you see? And he needs to get a run animation that sort of conveys his actual. It's funny, if we wind up scaling him up a little bit later on, then we'll probably have to redo the animation. What's up, Fat Matt? I didn't wait. I think I did see the video you uploaded, of the gnome. You shrank him and tried to get through a barred window, right? It didn't look like he was successful though. Whitechapel asked, which environment / biome type are you looking forward to building the most? Interesting question. I don't know that I have a favorite. I can't say that I'm looking forward to building any one specifically more than others. I'm excited about just getting all of them in. So, oh no. Okay, good. I didn't take any damage for whatever reason. I mean, it's a cop-out answer, but it's a hard question. I want to, I mean, I'm excited about swamps, I'm excited about forests, and seeing how we can make them feel very different. I'm excited about frozen wastes and lava places and weird sulfuric and otherwise kind of brilliantly colored pools outside of where the gnomes live. Really want to convey, like, if you've seen it, there's some interesting pictures of like potash mines or potash pools where they're making, is it potash or potash? And I know it derives from the words pot and ash, but I thought it was potash. Anyways, and then also like Yellowstone Park, I think it is. It's got all the crazy multicolored pools. So there are a bunch of different deep zones that I'll be excited for, like underground lakes and jungles and, you know, just underground in general. Should make 2 sets of Ruined City dungeons, call one K-Port and the other one Freenos. Fecal finger painting, you never know. That might make its way in. Will the shorties have a smaller hitbox? I think they already do. Let me see. Well, I could be wrong on that actually. Yeah, so it's smaller. Fair point, Bunny. Fat Man said, things are coming along. Seems like just yesterday everything was blobs. Yeah, it's been a little while. Every week there's a bunch more here. We're chugging along. Will different helmets have varying geo, or will also largely use the texture approach? I think it's going to be a bit of both, right? Like, different helmets should have different geo. I mean, they're helmets. But we can make some nice texture variations on that geo. Especially if we're reusing them. Like, I don't know if you remember seeing the gnome wearing the really kind of 80s styled horn helmet that was originally intended for the human. White Travel said, I recently saw an article that a giant sinkhole in China revealed an underground forest that potentially has a bunch of undiscovered wildlife. Let me look that up. Giant sinkhole in China reveals forest. 630-foot sinkhole in China reveals massive ancient forest. That's amazing. The sinkhole, which is located in the Guangxi Zhuang. How do you say that? I don't think it's necessary. All we care about is that there's a big sinkhole. The sinkhole is not a surprise as southern China is home to karst terrain, which is landscape prone to sinkholes and caves. Well, I cannot wait to see the discoveries there. All right, so I'm still exploring. Man, if there's one thing we have in Night Harbor, it is room to place NPCs and stuff. It's pretty up here, though. You're doing a great job, Pattis. Good job, buddy. The Deep Elf home is not a giant sinkhole. No. Bunny, at some point in the not too horribly distant future, you, me, and Hamad need to, well, prisons. This is from the video where you're trying to jump through the bars after shrinking yourself. I saw this last night. Oh shit. I'm glad, for whatever reason. Where's my pet? I'm sure my pet's not aggroing everything. But Yumi and Hamad need to talk about elves, and get all of that updated and hammered out. Because there's so much elf lore, and then there's so much elf lore that I think going back through and getting all of it sort of aligned, refreshed, is a pretty big task. So wow. You know how many damn torches we're gonna have to put in here? We may have to break some of the, like this point of interest, the garrison point of interest, we may have to break it into its own zone just to support the number of torches that we'll wind up having in here. You left work early and you're still 30 minutes late? I'm sorry. What's up, Ishi? How are you? I mean, so the question I have is between our sphere of influence system and occlusion and everything else, there should be a way for us to basically render the render those light sources as a non-factor. You know what I mean? Like, we'll have to talk to Ali about that. Thank you, Ishiwatari. Appreciate the sub. Nicodemus said, why torches? Why not oil lamps? Plenty of sand to make glass, and you could have whale-like creature in the ocean to create oil. I like how, so Ishi, there was a bit of a delay there. Thank you for 17 months. So Nicodemus, to your point, why not oil lamps? Oh, I'm using the term torch as a generic means of saying light source that will eventually make Unity go, why are there 10,000 light sources? Alright, I need to change time of day. I do not want to run around in the dark again. Oh my goodness. My hands are so tired from gardening that I can't type. Yeah, it's not bad. So this is actually a pretty good view, Harrison. It's interesting because kind of hitting this angle, the various parapets and stuff like that, start to show the bit of promise of it being a more congested city. Oh, nice, Nick. You want to play some? Cool. Yeah, I'm all set up for if we want to have a discussion and record notes and all of that per Discord with regards to starting experience, but we can also just play for a bit and see what happens. I mean, hell, we can chat and play. Hey, Dark Inside. Good morning. I keep forgetting that it's a lot earlier for you guys now. Chat and play should be the game's subtitle. A little tagline action. Thank you for the prime sub, Cubby. Monsters and memories. Chat and play. Let me run over here. How long is the day-night cycle and is day-night equal time? So it's currently sped up quite a bit. I asked Ali about slowing it down to something that's more representative. And he said he's got to remember how it's set up. So then we'll get it to... Ooh, I love this part. Does this go through here? It doesn't. Does it? No. Okay. It doesn't. It ends there. All right. I was wondering if that was like a pass-through type thing. This is a redesign of the garrison area that Pattis has been working on. So there's a lot going on in the garrison here. So this is still Night Harbor. It's Night Harbor Garrison. Cody said, I've been a long time YouTube follower. Love the old EQ interviews. Excited to see Eminem. Well, thank you. Oh no, Ishii. What time's your shift normally? Which TLP server is everyone rolling next week? What's the name of it? Vanicky, I think, is the one that I'll probably be trying. Zimpion, thank you for the follow. Or is it Champion? What's the pronunciation on that? So you work from 6 to 2 and then 2... Or then you've got a break. So you've got like a 1 hour gap for lunch. No, wait. How do you, huh? You work from 6 to 2, or you work from 2 to 10. So on the 6 to 2 days, it should be okay, right? Yeah, I was really torn about changing the schedule, but honestly, it's been so crazy to be able to have like evenings throughout the week with Jasmine. Man. Oh. Okay, I didn't take much damage. We should fix that. So yeah, the garrison's also got this this dock area. It's got training areas, it's got a jail. Got a lot going on here. This turned out to be a pretty big and pretty cool point of interest. Bardic Broadcasts. Thank you for the follow. Well, if it makes you feel any better, Ishi, you know that like the first 30 minutes of, or 40 minutes or 3 hours of any one of these streams that I'm doing, you know, you usually just skip through. Just us getting warmed up and figuring out what we're actually going to be doing tonight. Bardic Broadcast said, I heard of your project today, a capital idea. It has my best wishes. I love that. Thank you. Alfonso asked the question, is that the YouTuber Bardic? And it was answered with an I. Indeed. We need to up that fall damage. Yeah, here's all right. So if you haven't seen the website, there's the website. Here's our Discord. And here are all of our old mods. For folks to peruse. Make it deadlier. Less shiny, chunkier, and deadlier. That is how we do, Can confirm jumping off chain towers and missing a chain is fatal to a level 60. But are you a gnome? I think somehow gnomes are lighter, so they take less fall damage. So Harrison, was the bulk of the changes have just been in the garrison, right? And have you made a prefab? Have you made a prefab for the new tree? Or trees? Will we be adding greenery to the city? Palm trees, cacti, tall grass? Yeah, so the palm trees and stuff are... Here, let me fly. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'll keep an eye out, Harrison, and as soon as the tree's available, I'll be happy to basically start plopping them into the zones. See what we can do there. Especially if they're prefab. because then I know that if you make any changes, it'll just propagate out. Yeah, what tree did we settle on? I thought there was like one last attempt that was going to be made to get the look. Otherwise, wasn't it row 2, tree number 2? Or was it tree number 3? Left to right. Thought it was the middle one, row 2. Okay. So essentially that style will be what you'll be attempting. And this is one of the ones where you tricked it, right? So basically so those of you that weren't here, when we first started with the trees, we started with like a very, very old school, just 4 or 2 planes sort of making 4-panel tree. And then I think this was like, what, it's 3 planes or 4 planes. And then this one's more sort of the WoW style, classic WoW style, like flat fronds that come out and bend but are still choppy enough that they look old school. And what I found was just the shadows wound up being pretty good on this. And so in looking at the shadows more, because I think it's going to be really important for us with the styles. You know, one of the things that we're doing is going for really classic blocky, you know, you can kind of see the polys and the points and stuff. Playing with lighting and shadows is, you know, you'll see it in the dungeon if we pop in there in a minute. Lighting and shadows is everything for this, right? Because it's basically, how do we make something that looks pretty classic with updated textures, but then really leverages light and shadow and things like that in the engine. So here, these second generation trees wind up doing a lot better job. So when we have like groves and stuff, it'll really pop. To the point that I think kicked off all of this, yeah, there'll be greenery in the city. If I fly and not get distracted like the hummingbird that I am, you can see we have a area that's blocked out for a park. And so hanging gardens and park and things of that nature. I wouldn't be shocked if you've seen the concepts for like the top tier, where a lot of the embassies and things of that nature are. I wouldn't be shocked if you see more greenery in there, while still maintaining the as this fills out, it'll be more of a sprawl in a desert biome. And then when we go to the north into Sungreet Strand, out of the north gate of Night Harbor, then there's date orchards and palms on the ground. And as you get closer to the glass flats, it's a bit more sort of dense in that regard. And then glass flats will be kind of barren. So yeah, we'll get some more color in here. Don't worry. Everybody's like, oh, it's too brown. Well, it's a desert. It's a desert. So, and the various oases will get made. All of that. So, it's just we've gone from a very sort of block out prototypey phase with the original Night Harbor to now that we're getting the actual production quality assets in. It'll just be a little bit barren for a bit as we go. But that is what happens when you guys tune in like every stream for a year and a half of development. You get to see the various spurts of progress in slow motion sometimes, where somebody that hasn't been here in a while comes back and is like, holy shit, this looks totally different. Yeah, a lot can get done in a month. Guten Morgen, Cotswold. Wie geht es dir? Alright, so I started answering some other question and then sort of flitted off. But I think, you know what, I think we're good. If I didn't answer your question, be sure to remind me of it. I'm gonna hop out of here. Nick, did you have any thoughts on like what level to play? I was thinking about just basically re-rolling a new Inquisitor and then seeing what it feels like. Tony said you can definitely get a lot done when you're free to just build what makes sense. You don't have a bunch of odd parameters set by suits upstairs. Well, I mean, it's definitely there's definitely part of that. There's not a lot of us having to do demos for marketing or anything of that nature, right? It's just us. I think the other thing too is the team is still small, right? We're 11 people. We chat almost non-stop asynchronously in Slack when we're not chatting with folks on Discord. So that allows us to sort of align and debate and show things off. Like Pattis was saying, you know, he was posting videos of stuff last night. So we're constantly either showing screenshots or 30-second clips or whatever. And the thing is, we're not showing them because the team is only 11 people. We're not showing those in isolation. We're not like taking a screenshot and showing all the artists in our little art bubble, or you know, discussing a feature or whatever just in the design bubble or amongst the coders, right? Like everybody has access to every Slack channel. I'm pretty sure most people on the team, if they see one of those channels go bold, which means there's been something added to it, most people probably at a minimum like tap it to just kind of see what's going on. And if it's something that's not really in their area of interest, we'll go, oh, whatever, this is some, you know, code talk. All right, I'm going to move on, that kind of stuff. But there's that ability to have the awareness. We can search Slack if it's like, oh, what did we say here? So all of that makes it a hell of a lot easier to communicate and coordinate. But I would also say, like, if somebody were to come to us and go, hey, in an effort to make faster progress, we're going to give you everything you need financially to be able to double your team size. To me, that's a scary proposition, because while we'd be able to make faster progress on certain things like asset development, I think that coordination and being able to communicate and keep people aligned and not start to create, like, have these silos emerge and all that stuff, it's just so challenging. Scaling teams is always so challenging. So in that case, I think we want to stick with our plan where we do something like outsource. Because again, then that core team, you know, the core team of 11, or if we wind up being 15 or whatever, at some point, that core team is still tight and has good chemistry and very well integrated and very aware of what's going on. But then we provide, you know, we bolster our throughput or capacity through a group that we basically drive and we approve as a group. So Dark Inside asked, how is grass going to work? Is it going to be pixelated or just normal? What's pixelated? You mean like edges and stuff? Or like the painting style? The painting style will be consistent with, here, let me... I think the only downside to us constantly communicating is whenever I see a notification pop up for a Slack message and I'm streaming, I'm like, all right, what's being discussed? I'm immediately curious. I want to know. And then... So we've got some examples of grass that we've basically, that's like dried up. You'll see them in game, like I can show you. And what we did was we just took like 3 cards of this and crossed them very old school style. And so the idea is to try to go for a nice painted look, but do, you see like with the fire here, right? A very old school implementation using that look. Gnome, Inquisitor, Inky 2. Oh, cool. It didn't let me have a 2. Perfect. Bardic Broadcast says, I like what I read here on the website. We plan on focusing on single group content. Good. I don't know that I've ever said this word out loud. Bye to raids. They run against the theme of heroic fantasy. I definitely understand the appeal of raids. And so our thing is, it's not like we're going to not have any multi-group content. But the focus, like the true heart and soul of the game, is group content. So we're going to start there. But the thing I think we've talked about a few times is it's inevitable, unless you do something really weird, it's inevitable that groups will get together and try to kill weird things. When groups get bored, they'll just attack a city. I think we've even seen that in the old days of EQ. Ethan said, have you talked about dangerous roaming mobs that sounds in a way like raid... oh, you talked about dangerous roaming mobs that sounds in a way like raid bosses to me. Yeah, we'll probably have some targets of opportunity in that vein. Yeah, in the case earlier, the roamer we were talking about was, you know, something like a, Bunny just said, like a level 12 monster in a low level area. But, if you, so, and this is the point, right? If you've got a level 12 monster in a level 1 to 4 area, and a bunch of level 1 to 4s get together and attack the level 12, that's the kind of thing that happens, right? Nick, did you just repop the zone? Yeah. And did I log in the wrong character? I did. Hey, Carthage. How many characters can you have per account? We haven't locked that down. How many characters would you want on an account? Whoa. 8? At least one slot for each class? I don't know about that, Bunny. That's pretty generous. Oh, hey, I'm still in here. If you want to have that many alts. And the thing is, it's going to change as we add more classes, which we hope to do. Let me... Scribe and Mem. Nicodemus said 1. People need to learn to commit to a character. Quit being flaky. Now, we want people to have alts. So, alright, Dark Inside, enjoy work. We want people to have alts. Memorize Slam. Memorize Provoke. And then memorize Strength. We'll put that there. And then what I'll do is I'll turn off the background music that I've just been running from our YouTube playlist of our soundtrack. So I'll hit pause on that. I'll unmute in-game audio. What did Kronos say? Did I have already said it? 8 or whatever EQ was, plus the option to pay for extras. I'm being attacked. Well, that was interesting. Attempting to load asset reference that has already been loaded. Handle is exposed through getter operation handle. Well, let me load back in. Maybe alt slots need to be rewards in game, like making it to level 10. That's an interesting take. So the more veteran you are, the more veteran your accounts maybe as well. Rather than paying organic cacao. 3 per account, buy additional. So this is going to sound ridiculous. This is going to sound like the worst business business planning ever. But what we really want you to give us your monthly subscription. Right? We basically want, you know, let's just assume it's going to be $15 a month. We went to $15 a month. The additional, however, yeah, I hate money. That's the thing. No, I don't. But I do think that a lot of stuff that comes up at times, it's like, well, is there a way that we could actually use that service that you typically pay an extra $1 for or whatever it is? Is there a way that we could use that as an in-game drain? Or is that content that can be discovered? Oh. So another exception thrown. And another crash on the way in. Let's try... Well, let me try a different character. Because this wasn't happening before. Nick, have you seen this at all? And Nick, do you want to be in Discord? But yeah, so I was actually thinking about this a fair amount because we've had a number of things come up where it's like, oh, well, you know, you could probably sell that or you could probably add it or whatever. And they make sense, but it's just like, all right, next time it pops up, I'll throw it into Slack, the error that is. Here, let me try the same character again so I can get the error and then I can post it. No, but what I was thinking was we were just having a conversation about how do we you know, try to mitigate a bit of the mudflation and what sorts of drains do we want to have in the economy, etc. And I do think there are a number of things that we can just always link back to potentially having that be a service that you can acquire just through in-game purchase, if that makes sense. What about potentially unlocking multi-classes on a single tune, kind of Final Fantasy style? Maybe not be able to use every class, but 1 or 2. I don't... I love that idea for other games. I just don't know that I like it for this one. But it could be a convenience to not have to redo all that content for every class you want to play. Yeah, see, I think that's the challenge there. I think the experience of replaying content when you make an alt or finding ways to power through or mitigate that creatively, it's just core to the actual experience. Bunny said she's probably getting the same error and posted that as well. So let me see what you just posted. And I will post this one. And now we'll try a different character. Bum, 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 bum. So I was on this one earlier. And here we are. So let me make another brand new character and see if we have this issue. Create character, gnome, fighter. Interworld. Reb Chumley said, I enjoy making alts to try out new class races, but I always ran into the boring level 1 to 6 where every class was basically the same. Stab with dagger and your one useful spell. Hope you guys will spice up the lower levels per class. Well, that was a discussion I was going on in Discord, right? About the, our desire to actually make the lower levels take a fair bit longer, but provide all of the gameplay that you would expect at later levels early on in the experience. Which I think there are a number of comments on that where that's basically that's not too bad of an idea as long as the low levels don't suck. So we'll try to make them not suck. Thank you, Darvith. But to the point of being able to switch between wizard, fighter. Oh wait, Nick, are you playing a fighter? If you're playing a fighter, then I probably shouldn't be a fighter unless you want to play cleric or something. Okay. And here, I'm gonna, just in case, I'm gonna hop in our Discord channel. Our voice channel. I think we should try weird groups, Bunny said. What I was hoping to try is a group similar to the one that we're in the other day, just so I could see what the... All right. What the experience feels like relative to the one that we had. I think the biggest difference... I mean, we've got... With the Inquisitor, I was able to do a fair bit of mezzing, and that was fun, but this will be good. Hey, Sam, what's up, dude? Yeah, Bardic. He's a big boy. If I wasn't floating right now, his foot is as tall as I am. But I am also probably a little small. We'll see as we get the other races in. Let's see what combat looks like. Oh, I didn't load a single ability. Loading abilities is where stuff broke for me before, so we'll see what happens. Alright, strikes down. Provoke. I'll sit here and sponge experience while you guys do work. Kick. And I'll load shoot and throw. For later. What kind of fabric are those briefs? Something breathable or stretchy, or more rigid like dried up leather? On who, me or the ogre? As a gnome, I only wear synthetic briefs. Oh, cool. Oh, I forgot. They're social. Make sure your dwarves have beards. Our dwarves will have beards. Don't you worry about that. That's your main suggestion? Fair enough. I think dying to a scarab is a good sign. It is a good sign. But whatever just happened here is not. Related to texture blit data, I think. Yeah? Alright, so I'm gonna copy this. And then here. And we'll do this and this. Aren't you afraid of the -5 testosterone stat on those synthetic briefs? As a gnome? No, I've got like a whole wheelbarrow full of testosterone following me around. It doesn't matter. Gnomes are the sexiest. Let me do this one more time. All right. Have we tried all 6 of the same class in a group and see if it breaks game balance? Not yet, just because we've been pretty good at finding things to change about game balance already. But in the future, yes. There's still a lot of like we just reworked the stats last month, and so as part of that, there's some combat formula rework that's been going on. So quiet when it's when we're waiting. Whoa. All right, let me go get my corpse. Another crash. Interesting. Yep, it's the same one. Hey Aaron, what's going on? I think this is the most that I've consistently crashed in quite a long time. Let's see. What just happened here? Just started your work day. How are you? I'm fine. I'm crashing a bunch today. Keith said this is the first crash I've seen in 3 months now. Yeah, it's we've got some stuff going on behind the scenes right now. That may make things a little bit weird for another week or two, probably. Nicodemus, I can copy and paste that, but I'm not the one working on it, so it's not going to help me a ton. Ethan said, I don't know how long you've been working on this, but it looks like nearly functional MMORPG. Amazing. When the things are functioning that are in, it's pretty damn functional. But today, not as much. Maple DV, thank you for the follow. So, at least you're getting exceptions instead of full Unity crashes. Yeah, fair point. I think we're getting more full Unity crashes earlier in the process. All right, Bardic, see you. Thanks for stopping by. Will you have some sort of tribute to Fippy in one of the newbie yards? There might be an Ashira that kind of fits the bill. Let me post this. Cool. And we'll give this one more try. If it doesn't work, then what we'll do is we'll just switch to something else, because I don't want to basically sit here and just keep crashing over and over. We have a couple of topics that came up in Discord. So I was originally planning on hitting those as kind of like a brainstorm discussion per I think it was Belfaster reminding me that we haven't done any sort of brainstorming in a while. So I'm set up for that, and then if all else fails, I can actually do work. Let's see. So I'm way out here, which is weird. So I'll run back and see. But yeah, per your comment, we've got, trying to think of what we don't have at the moment. We've got the full combat loop. We've got the ability to, you see, we've got grouping, full combat loop, including looting. I don't know, do we have, I don't know that we've got our loot rights in. Banking, trading, working stats, which, okay. Is that every time I modify my appearance? So working stats. Hey, Kinster, I switched I've switched stream times to basically it's early for you guys. I know on the West Coast it's still super early. In the future, I may start at 3 p.m. my time instead of 2 p.m. But what that winds up doing is making the stream like 8 a.m. Eastern, which is still really early for West Coast folks. But as people are waking up, they can take a look at what's going on over coffee. And then what that allows me to do is not stream starting at 8 p.m. my time. Since I'm in Germany, it's really kind of a pain to stream at the end of the day during the week for two reasons. One, I have to coordinate my evening schedule, and so my wife gets off work, and then we basically would, at a minimum, have those 2 nights kind of taken up. So this has been nice because now we can hang out more in the evening, and we can plan stuff a lot easier. And then the other thing is the folks that have been checking it out. I think the general consensus has been that the earlier time works even better. So, so we'll do this, and then, yeah, we'll switch over. So some discussion that was going on in Discord was about people's different opinions on starting gear. Hey Zagio, how's Plane 6 going? It is still noted in our confluence, believe it or not. The idea that we had put forward, well, so the way we currently have the starting implementation is you start with food, water, a starter note, and a weapon. The thing that we've discussed, and I think has mainly just been pushed from my end, was the idea of you starting with nothing, maybe food and water. The more I think about it, the more it seems like we could start with. So the intent is for players to start with as little as possible, and then be provided sort of clear opportunity to identify the source of all the things that they need. So Bunny said here's a thought on that to start with, starting with clothes, yes, no, and choosing the color of those clothes. Yes/no. What is that? Y/N. I wonder if I can change the chat box and have it work. So we've got the horizontal chat. Let me see if there's another way of doing it. Chatting. Let's go here. We'll copy this. We'll go into back to development. Paste it. Oops, not that. And we'll see if we can make this big. Maybe we'll take this, shrink it down a bit, make this bigger. Swap sides for them. Make it even bigger. All right, we'll do that. So let me scroll up and get caught up. And let's get some music in the background. Lobby gear should be rare, low stats involving crafting and questing, and no more shipping, of course. Said Zagyo. Bunny asked, do you prefer everyone start naked or clothed? I think I was originally in the pro clothed camp, and then we discussed it for a bit, and the solution that Ollie had put forward was one that I think he saw in UO, where it was you start with starter clothes. You can leave those clothes on your corpse, or you can sell them or lose them or whatever, but every time you die you are resurrected in a death shroud, so you're still covered, and it's sort of a consistent this person's dead kind of thing. And then I think my compromise was, well, if people are running around naked, then guards, depending on the city, depending on the location, should be able to say, hey, we don't want you being naked. And if you don't fix it, then they kill you, and then you wind up in a death shroud again. So it might be overcomplicating it. I'm fine either way. If we're going to start, like, basically have the base layer of your base unclothed look still be clothes, that's fine to me. So I think as a team we should probably just talk about it and then pick one. Because with the style that we're going for, it doesn't matter if everybody's kind of got the same, depending on race or whatever, same clothes when they're naked, in air quotes. And if we want people to have the option to, like, wear something skimpy in their own time, in their own housing or brothel or bathhouse or whatever it is that they want to do, then we can just sell them they can acquire clothing that basically, that's the aesthetic, right? Like the stuff that we're in when we're naked right now could easily be something that if you want to buy underwear and wear underwear, then you can buy it. So Kinster's response to starting with nothing sounds a little too survival to me. So first time Bob picks up the game. Let me make this box a little bit smaller. Got all sorts of shit's being cut off here. So we'll do this, and then we'll bring this down to here. We'll bring this up here. And I guess I'll hop out of Discord since no one's in there with me. And then that should kill that. It's been a while since we did one of these, so apologies. So let me go back up. Sounds too air quotes survival to me. So first time Bob starts up the game, doesn't know how to get a weapon, so tries to punch a few things. Because he's not a monk, his punches be complete garbage and he'll basically be useless in combat. Or will turning the newbie node in give you a weapon? Well, see, you've already provided like the first potential solution, right? So it goes from, if you start with nothing, do you have a newbie note? And if you have a newbie note, when you turn it in, do you get something? If you start with nothing, then the thought was, the less you start with, the more you've got to figure out how to get stuff, right? So essentially, that in and of itself is content, right? It's not directed. It's not a thing popping up on your screen going, okay, now click this button to play the game. I don't think we should have that, period. One of the things that got me interested in coming back and checking out EverQuest in the first place in 2020 was playing Escape from Tarkov. And to me, I really, really, for whatever reason, the fact that I'd heard how hard Tarkov was and like unforgiving and not newbie friendly and just straight up get into the game and start to get good. And if you're not good, then shrug, right? Like everything I'd heard about it made me interested in the game. And so naturally, rather than be brave and curious, what I did was I looked it up online and went, oh, I heard this game's really tough. And so I looked it up, and it's, immediately there's 50 YouTube videos that are like 5 things to do before you play Escape from Tarkov. 8 things to know before you log in the first time. And I watched a few of those videos because I was genuinely curious about the game. I'd heard that it was a genuinely hard game, that it was very unforgiving, that they did, basically no hand-holding, etc. And so watch the videos, and they're like, hey, you're gonna die, so don't take cool shit out with you. Here's how loadouts work, blah blah blah, right? And the thing was, the bulk of what they show is stuff that if you've played any of these other games before, you know it. But the sort of the base logic of what to sort of run out with, and how, like whether or not to do scav runs before you get too invested in the character and all this other stuff, was helpful. And so sort of bringing that back, it's all right. So if we provide direction to the player from the onset, what feel are we looking to establish? Like, what is the purpose of that direction, and how does that feel sort of carry out? At what point does that feel drop off, right? Like if we're doing some hand holding, where do we let go of the hand, right? So that's something that's been on my mind since the beginning of this. But again, the idea of making something that was like, the idea of coming back and looking at EverQuest from Tarkov was just because I was like, man, I remember EverQuest being, a more difficult game relative to a lot of the stuff that I played since then. And that sort of led all the way down the path to where we are today. Personally, Darga said, personally, I want to play a fantasy adventure game. Punching snakes while naked doesn't sound like that kind of experience. Well, but where does your fantasy begin? We had these same discussions on DC Universe, where it was like, it was, all right, but you want to be a superhero, but no one wants to start as like a lame superhero. So where do you start? Nick said, I like the idea of choice on what type of start you have based on Bartle's taxonomy or Skyrim's alternate life mod, mainly because different people are looking for different experiences. Or we could use Nikki's 12 different personality, or I guess player archetypes, or whatever. We would pick one of those. I don't necessarily know that it's a bad idea to provide a some sort of interface at the beginning. that says like, what's your level of familiarity, what's your level of experience or whatever. But similar to some of the things you've mentioned in the past is, will someone pick, so if you're someone that likes more challenge, would you actually pick a more challenging mode, or would you pick the thing that gives you the best opportunity to min-max? Right, and I think there is I think with interface and things like that, like giving people options as to like what experience they have in terms of like, sorry, it's funny, I just read shit in chat and then it's like my brain goes sideways when it's like, by the way, check this thing, and I'm like, oh, I want to click, but I actually want to finish my statement. Providing different interface options, cool with. Providing like a different gameplay experience is something we'd have to talk about in detail, and honestly, it almost feels like we'd be in a sense, I don't know, if over-designing. So let me see what you posted in inspiration. Oh yeah, that's right. So the starting options. Yeah, I think it's something to discuss. I mean, my response to it will I think sound maybe too negative or dismissive. So give me some time to think about it and see how we think it would play out. So here, let me just share it. So you can pick, like, basically, you pick from various options, which then set up the base experience. My question again becomes, one, are we okay with this? Like, what's the differentiation and what does the player get? And if we're okay with this, then I think it'll be interesting, because we've had some discussions as a team about even things like additional sort of like racial traits and other stuff that we're concerned might be min-maxy. I think if we can go this route, and we can go the route of providing more of those options to make it feel a lot more RPG-ish, that might turn out to be fine. My concern with not taking a route like this, but then providing like an established route, is how much are we influencing the potential backstory of a character and then not following through with it? And I'd rather there just not be anything there. All right, so let me catch back up on chat, because there's a ton of shit that I missed when I skimmed down to the bottom. Let's see. I think the clothing depends on how you picture characters starting out in the world. Did we wash up naked on shore? Have we been there for a while? So Thakor, my challenge with all of that stuff is the idea of establishing any of it, right? Like the whole, you just escaped, which, you know, I've made that tutorial for a game. You escaped from Brainiac's ship, blah, blah, blah. Like the whole establishment of like that bit of backstory, to me, it just feels like, why? Just why? I'd rather just be, you've started. Let you figure out your backstory. Seek and Destroy says, I prefer slow itemization, so getting to mid-levels with mostly statless armor is ideal in my fantasy game. I think you'll be happy then. Again, the goal is to have itemization and power progression be relatively slow. Want to skip some of these, sorry. I think it depends on how the tutorial works. Don't give items until they are introduced. And again, I don't like the idea of tutorials at all for an MMO. like Ultimate Online Second Age, sure, good carry, nice gear, and get gold adventure dice PK. Yeah. Hand holding isn't inherently bad. If you just tell a player what to do, that's pretty bad. If you design things in a way that players are encouraged and likely to learn what they need, that's good. If you put a player in a pit and they need to jump out of it, then they're learning to jump. Yeah, so essentially that's the way we discussed. We discussed things a little bit when I was talking to Ollie, I think primarily, but it was in Slack. You know, I understand like the vibe of starting out with nothing feels survivally, but also maybe that's because there's just been so many survival games recently. I think the idea is if we make it so that the game will do as much as reasonable to ensure that you can solve your problems, but then hand you a list of problems. Right? Like, I'm hungry and I'm thirsty. Well, then I should probably find food and drink. I don't have any gear. Then I should probably figure out where I'm going to earn gear. And there's a certain amount of that, like, if I walk up to a guard and ask them, where can I find food or drink? Then it should be something where by interacting with the NPCs in the world, I should easily be able to determine where that is. If I talk to a merchant that is selling swords and I ask him where to buy food, that merchant should tell me that there's a food merchant. Like, we've already got this system in. The merchant can say that there's a food merchant named such and such just to the north of here. Right? So, that type of stuff. But you know, to me, when I have an experience like, and I'm not trying to pick on it, but when I have a tutorial experience, I think the most recent tutorial experience was Gloom, whatever it is, Gloom Hollow or whatever the newbie zone is in EQ. It's just, it's so bad. Like, it's just, I'm so not into it. I think the most recent pleasant newbie experience was the island on whatchamacallit. Why is my brain like this? Project Gorgon. So enjoyed the island in Project Gorgon well enough, but still. Let's see. I'm really trying to catch up on chat, but we'll see. Kinster said, I guess I'm thinking about this new player that my dad and I stumbled across in EQ back in 2000. This guy was brand new and attempted talking to the guards, and they were like they were players and would provide them information. When I say first time Bob, I'm thinking of those kinds of players. I don't think giving them a weapon to wield as they set out in the world is a terrible thing, whereas players that are more familiar with MMOs might be like, you know, here I go killing again and start the adventure. My hope is that when first time Bob comes into the world, like I just said, and they speak to a guard, it actually is a little bit more useful than what would happen in EverQuest. The other thing too is I'm hoping that I'm hoping that through maintaining the value of our cities from the onset and not distributing the players all across the known universe, so that new players don't see other players when they first come into the MMO, which I think at that point the MMO is kind of screwed anyways. Then hopefully they're keen enough to ask in chat and go, shit, where do I find a sword? Right? You know, if they don't ask a NPC, if they basically don't get the hints that we put in there without there just being a tooltip or a pop-up that says, your first quest is to go find a sword, or go turn in your newbie note, right? Like, whatever it is. Then, again, at this point, if someone comes in and they just can't figure out how to chat with other players in MMO, they don't, it's like, what is this chat box? I don't know how to ask questions. They can't figure out how to talk to NPCs. They can't figure out, right? Like, all right, well then maybe it's not the game for them, right? And I don't mean to sound harsh, but I do think that, I do think that, yeah, at this point, it's kind of like, because what happens is you start to go down that path of like, well, we should put a quest in front of, we should give them a quest. First of all, our game doesn't work that way. You don't have a quest journal. There's no quest for you. There's no thing that pops up and says, go here, do this, right? That's kind of the antithesis of what we're shooting for. And so, when we say that this might not be the game for all people, it's, you know, going back to the ETF example, or sorry, EFT example, it's like, oh man, well, I don't think it's fair that we're not, you know, like skill bracketed, and I go in here and I just keep getting headshot, and it's just no fun. You guys should make this game more fun for everybody. No, you really shouldn't. I think sometimes you shouldn't. So, let's see. Now some flavor, you know, flavor stuff like the thing Nick just posted, if we can figure out a way to actually have that work with our various factions, and like he mentioned, the, you know, the fact that you can start as a traveler, which we're going to, I mean, we're trying to be a bit more deep with a lot more variance and things like religion. You know, it's not as sort of black and white with regards to alignment, like you good, him evil, that kind of thing. You know, the ability for things like deep elves to be able to start near their friends if their friends are halflings. There'll be a number of those things that I was just talking to Hamad yesterday about some of that, right? Like, how does your choice of religion play in, and then how do we convey to a new player that by picking this specific god and starting in this city with this race, your base experience is going to be that. I think we could probably tie some of these things in together. So it might wind up feeling, in terms of what do we communicate about your choices from the onset in character creation, I think we may be able to play around with a little bit of this, and maybe the suggestion that Nick just had, or the example that he just had, and have those things kind of come together to set your expectations when you first come in. But that still leaves, like, what is the base experience? And the idea, like I said, I think I was pretty hung up on the idea of like, you just start with nothing a while back. Starting with a few items and you know, a newbie note that gives you direction or whatever it's probably fine. I think there have been some, you know, there have been some moments recently where we were playing where I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. It is what it is, because you're gonna move past that stuff anyways. You're gonna run out of food. But it's funny, like if you look at EverQuest, the evolution of EverQuest, I could have sworn that when you first started, you did not start at your trainer. I could have sworn you didn't start at your trainer in the beginning. Am I wrong on that? But I could have sworn that we moved you to in front of your trainer later on. You started out in the newbie yard, where when you died, your respawn point basically, right? Yeah. And so this is a funny example, because I was telling Hamad about this yesterday, I think, right? So you start with a newbie note that says, go find this person, right? And the thing that we found back then, and again, like, you got to remember, like, when I was working on EQ, we were part of sort of the generation of EQ developers that dumbed down EQ and kind of led us down the rabbit hole. Led us down the rabbit hole of like where we are now, where everything's so hand-holdy. So you started in a thematic area that was defined by your race, class, deity combo, Nick said, but not your spawn point, but it was not the guild hall. And so we had so many people, basically the completion rate on turning in your guild note was so low that we basically spawned you in front of your trainer so you could turn into newbie note. And the completion rate of turning into newbie note did not dramatically increase based on that. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't that why you see so many corpses near trainers these days. Like you come in, maybe you turn in your newbie note, then you get yourself killed and you go out and get into the action, right? Am I wrong on that? I'm going to skim through. I'm going to be quiet for a second. I'm going to skim through chat, so I'm not going to read every bit of it out, just so I can try to get caught up. All right, so now that I'm sort of down towards the bottom, problem is player perception. Most today think all games should be tailored to them in some way because many companies have tried to design games to be one size fits all for mass appeal, and this mentality has arose. I prefer games tailored for a specific audience as it makes the experience more authentic. Yeah, so we've just got to figure out what is that authentic experience in this case. Which, if you've got, you know, anytime you've got more than one person, you've got a variance in opinion. Start with a note at the city gates. It tells you to ask a guard for directions to your guild master. He doesn't, he maybe doesn't even give you anything material, but might have useful information on your class, and you just learn where your trainer and class vendors are. Or you can totally ignore them if you want. So that was Darga's suggestion. Oh yeah, good point, Nick. On TLP, there's no corpse runs. So you just death teleport with your items at the start. Tunnel mules kill themselves to get to the tunnel faster is the main thing you'll see on P99. So somebody had asked earlier what my what my thing was with the EQ tutorial. It felt very much like a tutorial, right? It was just extremely directed, and you know, it's one of those experiences where I didn't feel like I had much agency. I felt like I just needed to follow these steps that were given, and I think, yeah, I could have just skipped a tutorial. But the, you know, in doing it, as soon as I get in it, it just felt very like, look, you know, look left, look right. This is, here's how WASD works, and then do this, and then there's like, you know, it's scripted, and it's very like quest after quest after quest, and there's yeah, it's very on rails, and given the limitations of, I think, the tools and the engine and stuff, it's just, I mean, like I said, guys, the DCUO tutorial, well, I think they've redone it since then, but I did the one for launch, and, you know, I redid it a few times, and it was just like, you know, it's the usual stuff. Like, here's how, you know, I think, I don't remember how much we had like pop on the screen to tell you to push what buttons. We probably did, if I had to guess. And then we give you little challenges like, how do you get up this wall and through this hole, right? It's like, oh, I super speed up, or I can fly, or whatever. And you can't get past that area until you do want to, you know, use one of your movement abilities. So I get it. I don't know what it's been about thinking about this process that makes me, you know, and I'm not speaking for the team, I'm just speaking personally, makes me want to have it be as just, here, you're in the world, go, as possible. Could have been cool if it was more freeform, like it plops you in a dungeon. There you go. No hand holding, no pop-up messages guiding you on anything. Yeah, but then that's similar to popping you in a newbie yard as well, right? Like, it's, I agree with that approach. It's just, but it's the same thing. It's just in a different location. Mandalorian, thank you for 10 months. Leaf08 said, my favorite memory from EQ Classic was making a barbarian, then trying to meet my friend in Kanos, getting lost in Chronet, and falling into a hole that turned out to be a cave full of mobs, and you never got your corpse back. So, like, falling in the hole in Black Burrow, which is classic. The start in Night Harbor City Jail, time to break out. Breaking out of jails. At this point, I wonder how many games have had breaking out of jail tutorials. And I'm not bashing them. Like I said, I've literally made that for an MMO. You broke out of Brainiac's ship at the beginning of DCUO, right? And it was like we were joking about it because we were like, what are the 5 different tutorials, the themes that we could have had, like. And you just kind of like bite your lip and go, all right, fuck it, it's gonna be a breaking out of jail tutorial. Divinity Original Sin 2, you break out of jail island. Yeah, most of that takes place on the ship though, doesn't it? So we've talked about what quests might be available for different characters starting in different areas. Like if you're a halfling starting in the troll area, would you be at a camp or something of that nature? That's just stuff that like Ham and I have kicked around with regards to how do we do travelers. But again, the degree to which we make it guided is... What game required you to get to level 20 before it even allowed you into a multiplayer version? I hated that. Oh, I don't know. Maybe somebody out there remembers. And Conan? Okay. D Loves Pudding says, I like games where sure there might be a starter quest, but you can disregard it and you can do your own thing and it doesn't matter. Not like you missed anything. I mean, I like the idea of there being a jail that you could break into. I like the idea of there being sewers that you could go find and explore. You could go out to the newbie yard. You could go to an inn and find out that they've got a beetle infestation down in their grain cellar. You can go out to the harbor area and find out that some people want the wharf rats sort of clubbed because they're, going into the warehouses, right? But basically it's on you. And you could roll 5 different characters in the same, so like in Night Harbor, you could roll 5 different characters in Night Harbor and decide that you want to go do a completely different set of level appropriate encounters that maybe you missed the first time or whatever. And we're not telling you what to do. Now, when you realize I made a wizard, I wonder where wizards go, because you made a wizard and you've probably played an MMO before, right? I don't know that we've had anybody in our chat or Discord or whatever that has not played an MMO. Hell, most people have played like EQ. So we're talking about this theoretical player that doesn't know these things, right? Like I don't. Is there anybody in here that this is applicable to? So does anybody in here, when you log in for the first time, are you, whether you have items or not, are you going to be confused as to like the existence of items or the possibility that there may be NPCs you could interact with to get items. Or Nicodemus said they'd be young, very young. Rev Chumley asked the very pertinent question: would this game really be on any complete MMO newbies radar? Correct. Would it? Belpaster said, well, in Dark Elfland, the first true item of worth to equip was pretty much the giant snake fang zone over. Didn't have stats, and God help you fighting those snakes with poison as a butt-naked player. But man, it was exciting, and getting the armor at all was a big deal and took a while, right? Like that's the experience I'm trying to figure out how to hit. User experience, first time MMO player, that's a tough one to build out that fits into today's gaming atmosphere and would probably be much younger than a normal MMORPG player. A lot to go in there. Don't want to, I honestly, I don't want to think about it though. Right? So what I'm actually hoping for, and again, I might be the only one on this, but this is something that I don't think has been a secret, is I want a game that just feels, for people like pretty much all of you, it feels like you come in and you're immediately, you're not worried about being told what to do. You already know what to do. But what you're thinking about is like, what are all the things to do? Like I believe this, tell me if I'm wrong, but as experienced MMO players, as people that have played for quite a while now, most of you, when you pop in, first of all, let's assume that we get to a point where you're seeing less and less of the available content on stream. You see us kind of do the same shit, blah, blah, blah. But your curiosity is when you start in Night Harbor, you want to figure out where all this stuff is. Not only do you want to figure out where the giant snake fang is, or what it is, or the crack staff, what is our crack staff, what potential lobby quests are out there, what weird item quests are out there, what like sort of broke ass feeling like, wow, this feels way more powerful than it should feel or should be, stuff is out there. What quest has nobody discovered yet? Like what NPCs have nobody discovered yet? Like a big part of our promise is this idea of, depending on what day of the week it is and what moon cycle is going on, and you know who you've talked to before, this NPC may or may not be there and may or may not provide this new quest or opportunity or whatever to you, right? It's this idea of there being a lot of mystery, a lot of new shit to find, a lot of like forging of the optimal path that the first people in the world will have to do. And then, you know, the rest of the folks will be reading the wiki and going, oh shit, okay, actually this is probably the best item out here. And we could go either to the Western Newbie Yard and get this, or we could go to the Northern Newbie Yard to like get that. Are enough people going to be willing to pay $15 a month in order to keep the game going if it isn't new player friendly? But who are the new players? Like, we have to have a target audience, and the target audience isn't people who would come in and go, what is a chat box? How do I ask questions? How do I Google to see where the wiki is for this shit? Or like, I have a class. Maybe there's a trainer somewhere around here. If I don't have a glowy arrow, I'm not going to be able to figure it out, right? Like I just think that if we're making the assumption that people can't figure out these things that I've just mentioned, like if we're making the assumption that the bulk of our player base that's going to pay $15 an hour can't do this shit, like we're in a weird state, like we're in a weird place. Because again, I just asked in chat, how many of you would not know to do that? Everybody's talking about a theoretical other player. Talk about yourselves. Talk about yourselves. Don't talk about other theoretical, like the millions and millions of kids that are coming straight, you know, like 202 million monthly active users on, Roblox or whatever. We're not trying to get all them in here. If anything, what I think would be the distinguishing factor would be some tiny percentage of those players of, you know, Minecraft or Roblox or whatever, if we want to talk about like new MMO players, hearing there's this game that you get in, it doesn't tell you anything. You just got to go in and you got to figure it out, or you can look it up, right? Like, to me, that's more of an opportunity to have a unique selling point to get people to check it out than it's a really comfortable newbie experience. Am I crazy on that? Nick said, don't block people from progressing vertically, but incentivize them to progress horizontally to progress vertically. If some guy wants to go start whacking things right away, let him. Yep, exactly. But the people engaging with the world are the ones that are finding all the good stuff and actually progressing faster in the end. Correct. Hey, Maslaw. To be fair, Minecraft's an extremely complex game that requires outside research. Oh yeah, again, I'm not knocking it at all. But that's what I'm also saying is, oh, I think maybe we're in agreement. I don't know. I think that there's some of these things that have been sort of this needs to be a part of your new player experience in order to retain players. That it's just outdated mentality, to be honest, and just super outdated. I feel the need to state that I don't understand why we left from someone that hasn't played an MMO like to this to players that literally don't understand how the UI works. What do you mean, Kinster? Let me reread it because maybe I'm reading it wrong. I feel the need to state that I don't understand why we left from someone that hasn't played an MMO like this to players that literally don't understand how the UI works. Just speaking from my point of view is, I think the delta between not understanding how an MMO like this works and not understanding how UI works is pretty narrow. Right, because what's left? What's left is basically the idea of what do I do? Like I've logged in and I'm playing Eminem for the first time, and I'm maybe not any of the people that are, you know, a part of our discussions here. I'm just somebody that's come in and maybe I haven't played an MMO before. So I come in and I start and it's not telling me what to do. And so my question is, well, what do I do? And so how do I figure out, like, where do I get the answer of what do I do? And it's funny, like I'd be curious. I'm pretty sure literally every single MMO content creator on YouTube would listen to this discussion and be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? He's insane. Of course there needs to be direction, and of course you need to do all the things that every game does, only even better. But the thought here is you actually don't. Now, you do if you want to retain everybody. But we've said, you know, quite clearly that's not the target here. For me, I like to be in an environment where there's a ton of promise of interesting things to discover. I don't need the game to tell me to start clicking on buttons and to start looking around and, you know, basically figuring out the base mechanics or whatever. And actually, while we're on this topic, there is an interesting sort of reversal of what I've been saying, that I've got anecdotal evidence from DC Universe. So when we were working on DC Universe, we were at Comic-Con. And what I noticed was we didn't have a tutorial set up for the gameplay demo. Like, we had booths, you know, machines set up at Comic-Con that had a controller and stuff. And we saw this in our focus testing as well, because we had like one of those police and interrogation rooms where you could look through the mirror, but they couldn't see through. And the thing that we noticed was older players, you know, people in their 20s, 30s, whatever, they would come in and they would immediately start looking for the instruction. Like, and they would make comments about like, well, the tutorial's not telling me what to do, or the game's not telling me what to do, right? They would say basically that. And if the game didn't tell them what to do, they'd get frustrated and be like, well, the game should tell me more what, you know, should be telling me what to do. But then we'd have kids come in, especially when it was at Comic-Con, we'd have like these 8-year-olds come in and they would just push every button, right? Like they'd push every button and they would see, okay, this button does this and this button does that. And you watch them almost every time. You'd have this little kid there. It's like sometimes even like having to, you know, sort of like posture up a bit, stand on their toes to see what's going on. And what they did was they had very much this sort of like beginner's mind. They would go in and they'd be like, here's every button, zoom around. They do random shit for about 3 minutes. It would just be random. And then from there, they would understand the controls. They'd have figured out that this thing's attacking them. They'd figure out whether or not, you know, they'd die a couple times. Okay, maybe I need to go fight this other thing. And then they would just start playing a game and then they'd be happy. And I would get the sense, and again, I could just be projecting what I want to see on this, but I would get the sense that they would also be a hell of a lot more satisfied because they're like, oh, I figured that out. What is the first 10 minutes or first hour's worth of reward that the game gave them? It was the sense that they figured some shit out, right? Instead of, okay, ooh, exclamation mark, and it's right in front of me, so I should go on that. And a thing popped up that said, right click on the guy with the exclamation mark or whatever, and then blah, 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 and then click this. Okay, now click this button. Okay. Instead of just like, I'm playing whack-a-mole on instructions, and then what is the reward? Well, in theory, my numbers went up. Right? So, I don't know, man. I'm just rambling at this point. Target seems to definitely be old EQ era players and picking up newer players that want a challenge. Do you just let them figure it out on their own? Yeah, I think I covered that. Bellpasser said, I don't worry about teaching players how to play an MMO, but maybe focus on parts that are shockingly different from MMOs that they've played in the past 5-10 years. Big differences like death and consequences. But for them to find our MMO, right? For them to find Eminem in the first place, it's very likely that whatever led them to Eminem with the essentially a tagline of monsters and memories. You'll like it because there's death and consequences. DCO is interesting. My husband never played MMO before and he thought it was the best and most fun game he ever played. A zero experience MMO player went from that to rating a superhero in a month. Yeah, it was but the thing is, a pretty straightforward experience. Maybe have a town blow a horn or something like they do with sharks on the beach. Here's your warning. Get the fuck out, or the creepy silent hill, or creepy siren in Silent Hill. Then all it takes is one person getting their back blown out by a giant to teach that lesson to everyone that's watching. They didn't all have to die to learn it and become frustrated, but they learn to avoid bad things, death, just by watching someone else get smashed. I think the desire for us to have players avoid frustration is well intended and has been pretty detrimental to a lot of the games over the years. Again, back to the Tarkov example. It's extremely frustrating to go in and get killed. That's why it's so satisfying to go in and actually not get killed. And the question becomes, how many times does that happen until a person quits? And You know, if we're making so based on what you've seen of the game so far, if you think that the average person is going to come in and be super frustrated and quit, I'm curious why, like why that would be the case. Think there are certain games that works for, and then there are certain games which set you up to fail. So what were you referencing, Nick? He said PlanetSide and PlanetSide 2 have some bad newbie traps where you're literally not playing the game the right way and then thinking the game is bad because the game kind of led you into a false sense of security and you just think the game is imbalanced or bad. But I think if we identify something where it's clearly just frustrating, like everything just one-shots you in a newbie yard, then it shouldn't be hard for us to discuss that and address it. But what would be an example that's more applicable to what we're doing? Because I would also say the first time I go into a dungeon, I've been working hard for, you know, all day, and I've gotten my gear and I'm excited and I've heard about this dungeon. I walk into a dungeon, I get hit by a train and I die instantly. And then I quit. Oh man, we should get rid of trains. I wanted to see how far I could swim underwater, and no one told me to keep an eye on that breath meter. And then I die and my corpse is underwater. And I can't recover it now. I quit. So I'm trying to think of like... So Zagio said, detect a player dying a lot in a short time and pop some advice, maybe with the NPC giving advice related to the player class or something like that. It's an approach. So in PlanetSide, you start with a suppressor and standard armor, and it's just no good against any other player. It's similar to the non-monk hand-to-hand situation Kinster mentioned, if we start players without weapons and armor. If we start players without weapons and armor and we provided no enemies that would actually be balanced against the fact that we're starting all players without weapons and armor, then I could definitely see that example being holding true. But if we intentionally start players without weapons and armor, then we should probably make sure that there's content available for players without weapons and armor so that they can complete the content and then buy weapons and armor. Now, on the flip side, if we start players with weapons and armor, then we still need to provide NPCs that are balanced for the weapons and armor that we provide the players with at the beginning, and we still need to give them goals, which are to get things that are better than that. So we've literally just moved the, you know what I mean? Like, and it's the same thing with, you give the player a newbie note, or you give the player a newbie note and you put them in, sorry, let me go back. You give the player a newbie note and you start them in the newbie yard. Or you can give them a newbie note and you can start them in front of their trainer that they have to hand a newbie note into. When you hand in the newbie note, the trainer can either tell you explicitly where to go next. Please go to here. And in our game, it's not going to be marked on a map or whatever, right? So then they still have to go out in the world. They still have to find that. They still have to figure out, like, where the fuck is here? Like, where is that, right? So they're going to have to think at some point, where do we engage the thinking? And I think the challenge that's happened is we've tried to mitigate the lack of thinking so much because we do want to keep as many customers as possible and we want to have all the customers. We're like, all right, so yeah, like you just said, there's a glowy trail, because an arrow is not enough, or a dot on a map's not enough. There's a glowy trail that takes you straight to the thing. So then you just follow your trail. You're looking at the trail. You're not seeing the walls. You didn't see the cool spider webs that Harrison put up. You didn't see any of the textures. You just saw this yellow trail. And then you go there and ta-da! Here's a bunch of beetles that you can then attack. Well, how many do I need to attack? I don't remember, because, you know, it's not intuitive. I didn't get a thing that says fill this bag full of beetle parts or whatever. Well, it says it in the journal. But what if I don't want to open the journal? Okay, so we should have it up there, and we should splash on the screen. You killed a beetle, and it's ticking on the thing, right? And then it's like, oh, cool. So, but at the end of the day, what winds up happening is it reduces the entire experience to basically, you know, me following a GPS around, because even for all the shit talking I'm doing here, if you put a glowy trail in front of me, I'm just going to stare at the trail, and I'm going to go there and I'm going to click the thing. And if you ask me 2 days later what I did, what my experience was, I don't know. I followed the instructions of ! I don't remember their name. Then I followed trail, and I killed mobile object to, you know, get quest item to increase my experience point pool. And I'm not saying I read every bit of quest text, but I mean, I do realize, like, oh, like, to me, it's enjoyable to go, oh shit, like, I wonder what the optimal gear is for this character I just rolled. All right, so let me, I don't know. I mean, hell, even I would rather somebody get on, you know, like the wiki. That's why I reference P99 wiki so much all the time. It's like, I'd rather someone sit there and get on the wiki and, you know, look up and make like a plan for themselves, like, or have it up on a second monitor. You know, everybody's like, you shouldn't need to have something up on a second monitor to play the game, but also don't expect your players to be social, because they're going to have something up on a second monitor that allows them to communicate. Well, which one is it? Pick one. Pick a lane, right? Like, either MMOs can't be social anymore because everybody has shit up on, you know, outside of the game that they use, or everything needs to, you know, everything needs to be told to me in game, because I wouldn't dare tab out and look at something on a second monitor. Like, you're not used to the 2 p.m. energy. Sorry, it is a lot nicer being earlier. It's just, and so, you know, the goal isn't to like kick people in the balls just to kick them in the balls, right? Like, the goal is to create an experience where you have the potential to get kicked in the balls, because you know what? That makes you feel a lot better when you get to kick the person in the balls first, or you get to, like, you finally overcome getting your ass kicked repeatedly, and it's like, nice, right? Like, that's what I like camping. You know, when I was sitting on Aradune, you know, like waiting for Gynox to pop, like, I sat there all week, you know, and when he finally popped and I didn't get my kill stolen, my hands were shaking. I was like, holy shit, he's there. And that's such a great experience. It was the same thing when Nick and I were camping J-Boots, and the first pair got ganked by a Necro, like, instantly. And I was just like, J-Boot, you know, it's like, Cyclops. And then, boom, it's gone. I was like, oh shit, you know, and it's frustrating. I was mad at that Necromancer. I was like, you son of a bitch. And then, like, crazy enough, another Cyclops pops like 3 minutes later, and we nail it and get him, and my hands are shaking, and that's so satisfying. So, yeah. Will Eminem have starting points during character creation? So that just came up in a question about our character create UI that we're working on, mainly focus on customization at the moment. I'm going to say likely. I need to, you know, the team needs to discuss this. I honestly would like there to be more sort of knobs and buttons and whistles at the beginning to kind of play with than fewer. There are concerns about like min-maxing characters and stuff like that, but if it was strictly up to me, I would be like, there's all sorts of weird traits that you could put some points into, and there's like all this other, you know, there's tons of shit to fiddle with, or you can just skip it, right? So, how do you avoid useless stat points that you end up regretting putting into? Maybe you let people respect their stats through a big sync in game. Is that too weird? I know, you know, respecking is a thing in other games. Would that be too weird? Later on, people realize the min-max, and they go, all right, well, let me just respec this stuff and put these points into something else. I don't know. Nicodemus said, my dad told me once, don't chase girls, focus on your career and the girls will show up. I think it applies here as well. Focus on the game you want to create and players will show up. Too much focus on maximizing players will detract from making a great game. But don't worry, we're absolutely not, we're not focused on girls on this one. In terms of chasing them. Thunderstorm in Bremen too. Weather is going mad here. It looks like it just got darker outside and it's supposed to storm tonight. That's why I went to the garden early. So I'm hoping there's some rain. I hope it's not like crazy catastrophic because we just got the seedlings in and stuff like that yesterday. But I'm hoping there's some nice rain to kick off some of the seeds that we planted and feed our seedlings and stuff. Harrison said, overcoming frustrations is part of the fun, and that has been designed out of a lot of games. Yes. Belfaster said, Nick should have had the right to loot those boots, even though you had dibs on the first pair. So hopefully you guys don't go too overboard with the loot rules, some type of loot window. That's right up there with terrible tutorial thing. I think Nick just mentioned in Discord, like our approach is pretty simple and straightforward at the moment. Right? It's do the most damage, but we will likely have the ability to maintain first to engage, you know, for certain things. Maybe, Nick, when you mentioned that, like I immediately thought of like stuff that like quest spawned or certain like spawned encounters. That might make sense there. Min-maxing is that's an issue if there's more than one interesting choice. If my cleric is always just always wants to dump starting points into wisdom, then there's really not a choice, just the illusion of one. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much diversity of stats or how different stats may retain importance for the various classes. Nick and Ollie have had some discussion there. It'll be something that I'm curious to see how we progress that. Epic respec quest would be fun. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of basically having all of that stuff. Just be content. Ishiwatari said it's super heavy rain right now here. Wind so strong. I hope my windows don't break. I hope it doesn't get that bad here because then that may actually screw up our little seedlings. I don't know if they'll make it. But we can always plant more. Mask said, one of my biggest turnoffs for me when it comes to old MMOs is here are the points you don't know what they let me just read it literally instead of here are the points you don't know what do, but will mess up your character unless you do them correctly. But when that's implemented with a respec system, it switches, it completely becomes fun. Yeah, I mean, unless someone can see like a critical error for respec, I think it's just a natural sort of extension of that approach. Please don't create an advanced loot window. I get that some people love it, but holy crap, it's such an eyesore and unintuitive. Yeah, I mean, once it, like 2 weeks later, once I got used to it, I could see why people liked it, but I think even then we were like, we don't want that for our game. Nick said, I want triggered spawns to credit the quest turn in person. Want triggered spawns to credit the... FTU would be for open world targets that we might want to have that mechanic. Okay, cool. I think we're on the same page on that then. But 99% of the game would be most damage done. Nice. Lou Diamond says advanced loot window freaking rules. It just needs a UI redesign. I agree with this. Kinser said once I figured it out, it was cool, but remains such an eyesore. I felt like it just did too much for you. Like, is it weird to want to, you know, physically loot an item off a body? Like, there's subtle psychology to that, right? Like, I've killed a thing, or better yet, we've killed a bunch of things. Like, so we've just had this brawl and there's stuff everywhere. And now we go through and we rifle through their pockets, because that's what we do in these games. We go to people's homes, we murder them, and then we dig through their pockets to see what they have. And, you know, we may have to communicate some of that loot. And I reach down, I pick it up, I take it off them. Good concept when you're playing EverQuest 20 years later and it's just whatever, but in the context of a new game with new people, with new characters, I don't think it's a good thing. Belfaster, let's see. Do you want that level of loot control in game where players don't even touch it until it's assigned to them? Okay, so your response, it's an extension of your... Nick said, I think you should have to physically loot every item. Yes. Part of the fun of, you know, murdering a monster is getting to then kneel over its corpse and take stuff off of it. Hey, Runes, you get enough sleep? Man, he was tired. We keep walking him down to the garden and he's getting worn out. Speaking of, what are the views on free trade in the game? You mean making things, making most stuff tradable, Reb Chumley? Yeah, we want as much stuff to be tradable as humanly possible. Despite what may result in, you know, despite twinking, or maybe with twinking in mind. What's up, buddy? Okay, let's look. Twinking and alt was half the fun. Yeah, I think we all agree on that. What is the purpose of no drop items in games? Just to prevent twinking? Fish it, not just to prevent twinking. Given sort of the simple quest system approach, if quest items are tradable, then there's no way to sort of enact like this strict chain of custody for the quest item in which the designer knows that the individual making the hand-in has actually done the work to earn the reward. So no drop items is to help with quests. No drop items is to help ensure that powerful items that make it into the world aren't easily transferred to other people, that they have to do the work, I guess, to slow the flow of items into the economy. If you combine no drop and lore, then in theory, once someone's done a piece of content, then they need to move on. D-Loves Pudding says, do you remember your VOD with the old EQ dev that said the server with everything tradable had like significantly higher customer service requirements? Faintly. But do you remember why that was? Did they mention because of the amount of farming that was going on, or because of the issues with ninja looting, or... It's because people stole shit from other people constantly. So, ninja looting. Enchanters need a spell to spawn faked named to trick other players. It's a really, it's a very interesting and griefy idea. I think you could create a password to remove loot off of a character. What? Assume that there will be no multi-questing. I forget. This comes up a lot, and I forget the answer. I think what we've said is we're hoping to make it so that it's not as much of a requirement. Like there's less of a desire to do it. But I think making it so that it doesn't work is easy enough. My view on it is if 60% of the team was like, we're fine with multi-questing, I would be okay with it. Coding Caffeine said, do you remember during Legacy of Akesha and EQ who came up with the frog locks and what that time was like in terms of coming up with their home, land, lore, etc.? Essentially what happened there was we needed to pack as much. So we got told that we needed to have an expansion done in 4 months, I think. We didn't have enough time to even work out a deal to sell it in the normal manner. And so the idea of doing a digital download, like Heartsman or somebody was like, oh, we could just basically have them download the whole, expansion. We already had a bunch of features that we wanted to put out in live or something like that anyway, but basically upper management said you need to have an expansion done in 4 months, and we need to be able to charge like $20 for it. Especially since every other expansion that we did, since it was a box expansion and had to go through various distributors, right? Like Best Buy or whatever, we only got a cut of that. And so with it being digital download, our distributors weren't super happy with us. And so that's why we promised to put on a disc later. But I think they could already see like the writing on the wall with regards to not needing brick and mortar. So the first thing we had to do is like figure out how to make an expansion that was worth $20. We decided to go with that theme once we started talking about, like, the original name for it was it wasn't Legacy of Akesha. The original name of it was Prophecy of Grozmok, and it was, you know, in relation to the Grozmok stone. But it just didn't roll off the tongue in the same way, and so we got pushback from marketing on the name, and so we went with Legacy of Akesha because there was just enough lore with Akesha and stuff, and you know, everybody loves Short Sword of the Akesha and all that, and I think there were a couple faction hits in the game that basically made it you know, so that people realized it was part of the world. So, like, there's enough in-game lore to justify it. So then I proposed we do Broken Skull Rock because it was something where if we only got 4 zones, we could quickly just do that little island, and it was on the map anyway, so people could look and see it on the map and go, oh wow, all right, so maybe this was always planned or whatever. And then with regards to additional feature, one of the things that was thrown out, I think it might have been marketing or upper management, was like, you know, the kids love the new player races, so can you do a new player race? And we're just like, there's no way we can do a new starting city. But then we kicked it around and was like, well, we could probably kick somebody out of their starting city. And we picked Froglock because Froglocks are fantastic. We love Froglocks. And then we were already we were hitting on the whole Akesha, you know, like lore and blah, blah, blah. The thing was, and I'll be honest, and I don't mean this as a slight to anybody that likes them or to the artist that did it, when they made the Froglock not look like a Froglock, but instead look like the WB dancing frog, I was so bummed. It looked like a Battletoad and not a Froglock. And so I think there were probably some arguments going back and forth between design and art. But we can't win them all. And every once in a while, in situations like that, art will remind design that they are design and should probably just shut up. So, yeah, so basically we got the Battletoad Froglock, and then decided we were just going to kick somebody out of their city and take it over, because that was an easy way to mitigate that logistical challenge. So that's how all of that happened. All of that happened just because we had an insane deadline. Kinster said the EQ expansion cycle is insane to me. Like, nowadays games seem to have an expansion every 2 to 3 years. EQ had like, what, 6 in the span of 2 years at least. I mean, got to the point where we and then they were doing one every 6 months. So it was much. First time seeing the doggo. What's doggo's name? This little guy is Rune. R-U-N-E. The dog that you see the emote for in like the little emotes was the previous version of this dog named Ziggy. When Ziggy passed away, we found Rune, and he was in Moscow, and so he got driven to us from Moscow. He's really warm still. We'll have to, maybe it's just because it's hot out here, but I'm going to take a look at him when Jasmine gets home a little bit later and see. He's had a couple ticks lately. It's tick season. So. That greed to push expansions really hurt the game. Imagine if we had super polished and thought out expansions that didn't have to compromise anything because of time limits. Yeah, and I mean, the belief at the time was if we didn't do expansions, then we wouldn't have the retention that we had, and we wouldn't be able to get new players in because we wouldn't have a marketable, like, big splash. Like, hey, this is a new thing that's coming up. And then the third thing is our retailers wanted them. And so that's one of the things like people, I don't think, understand about the way the industry was working, at least back then. If you wanted to sell games, you needed to be able to keep Best Buy and, you know, what are some of the other brick and mortar like game places back then, you know, GameStop or whatever. So you needed to keep them happy, or they would not either buy many units of your game, or they would not position your game in a way that was kind of favorable to be discovered. And so the retailers actually had a fair degree of influence on like, hey, well, we need more of these expansions because they get a cut of that. So it's in their self-interest, right? And so digital download bypasses that a fair bit, especially direct digital download. And so that doesn't necessarily negate the other concerns is, player retention, especially in a monthly subscription-based game. Now, obviously, if we're putting all that focus into providing content month to month, then that addresses the retention issue. But that wasn't as much a thing at the time. So you see it now in everything from like MMOs through mobile, like the idea that, hey, if you provide like a decent live operations, like content release plan, then people will come back month to month or week to week. Like the last two companies I was at, I think we had a weekly content update cycle, and at the last one, and then the one before that was like bi-weekly. And so we were always releasing new stuff. And it was funny at the time, like I went to Taiwan to like check out the joint venture that we started. And we were looking at releasing EQ in, I believe it was Korea via Taiwan. And when I got over there, like everybody was playing Moo. And you'd see it on like buses, and you'd see it on 7-Elevens and park benches or whatever. And you go around and they would just hand you a free copy of an MMO, right? Like they're like, here you go, take this home, it's free, you can install it. Because their thing was they just wanted you to install and start playing, right? Like once you've gotten past the barrier to entry of like acquiring it and installing it, then they were going to retain you. I don't think it was free to play at the time. I think it was sub-based, but they were giving the software away. So it's like, guys, why don't we do this? Like, why are we trying to charge $30 or $40 for a MMO that's X number of years old? We just want them to get in and check shit out, right? Like, so. To the question of, Bunny said, I'm surprised anybody stayed caught up on the expansions. And Thakor said, it wasn't that hard to keep up if you raided with any frequency. Even back then, when your server had raid rotations. Yeah, well, what we wound up seeing was, I think, a greater and greater stratification of the player base. And the challenge that we ran into was like, what would the focus of the expansion be? Because we couldn't be all things to all people, right? And so what we'd have is you'd have players that are kind of casual and either, duoed or tried to solo, or, would do some casual grouping. You'd have people that were really interested in trade skills. You had a certain number of people that were interested in just kind of like being in the world and then RPing. You had more hardcore, you had like sort of the, I guess softcore is a weird term to use here, but you had like the non-hardcore raiders that were just trying to see some raiding, like casual raiding guilds and guild alliances. You had hardcore raiders, you had different tiers of hardcore raiders. And so like we'd have all these different mouths to feed, and we'd have 6 months to try to provide new content to all of them. So that's why it would be sort of weird here and there. It's like we knew with Pop it was going to be super heavy raid focus, but at the time there was a lot of concern being expressed about like people churning off the end of the high end. And then we went from Pop into Eldon, which was really focused on trying to provide more casual content and opportunities for people that aren't raiding to go in and earn, points with the Wayfarers or whatever. Over time, through enough like grinding of group instances, be able to acquire some decent items as well, right? And so it's like So it was often a balancing act. It was like, how do we distribute enough? How do we apply our resources to be able to hit these mouths, feed them long enough to then do something else, and then from that learn, all right, where are the next gaps going into our next expansion? And I understand the implications. I get what happened after we introduced instancing, but there was a lot of good intent there, and at the time it did fix a number of problems that we had. We just but what it allowed us to do is, you could see with later expansions, is we could provide X number of instances for like the more group game. We could instance dungeons for more constraints on, raids. And it allowed us, if you look at something like Omens of War, there's a sizable amount of content in Omens of War, and we rebuilt it from the ground up basically in like 5 months. So, yeah, so it was, it's a learning experience. Thank you, Code and Caffeine. Rip Chumley said I was a filthy casual, I guess, guy gilded and such, but had a 40-hour a week job when EQ launched, so I only got to play like 3 or 4 days a week, mostly weekends. People forget how diverse our player base was back then in terms of playstyle. And so, the vast majority of the people that played the game just were not leading edge players. But I also know that times have changed. Eldon happened the way it did because we were both trying to find a solution to making raids less zergable and more specifically challenging and more complex. And you could see like the beginnings of instancing with things like, as silly of an example as it is, and I don't think it's the only one, but it's the one I made. So like if you look at, I think Steve might have done something similar in like Acrylia. But like if you look at the Burrower Beast, basically I was doing very hacky shit to try to keep people both in a room and keep people from coming into the room, right? And so I think there used to be, before you guys figured out how to pull everything out, we had worms or whatever that would knock you back to keep you out of it and then keep the raid inside. And so that was essentially creating like a controlled space, but it wasn't an instance. And then the next iteration on that was because like playing Anarchy Online and seeing the instance like solo dungeon they had at the time like was pretty inspiring. And so it was like, all right, we want to be able to like control how many groups go into a bit of content. And so if you look at the hedge maze in Plane of Nightmare, where you've got to basically follow the guy around the whole time and keep him alive, that would let 3 groups in, and that was all just scripted. And we just had, I think, 4 hedge mazes, like 1 in above and then 3 more under the world. And so that was like the first sort of like, again, controlled space instancing without it being instancing. But the difference was, if you're in the Burrower Beast, nobody else could actually fight that. And if you cleared it, I could have sworn then it's like any other encounter, and then you'd have to wait, and then you have to trigger it again. So that's more like the concept of controlled space that I've mentioned since we started this than it is an instance. The same thing with the hedge mazes. If the hedge mazes were full, they were full. But I think because it was the nature of that encounter, I think you could almost always have them going when they weren't full. And then with Eldon, basically, we went to an offsite meeting, and Smed was, he literally said, if you're not pitching instant, or if you're not pitching housing, then I don't want to hear it. And so what we said was, well, in order to do housing, we need to do instancing. And here's all of the stuff that we would fix with instancing. We could make more group content, which made our studio head at the time, Rod Humble, really happy because he was very casual. And he was not wrong in his desires for EQ. We actually were wrong. We pushed rating. And Rod was constantly, because he was a very casual guy, he eventually ran The Sims franchise for a while, he was very much like, well, what do you do to make the world better? Or what do you do for casual players? Or what do you do with people that just want to be in and experience the world, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, I don't know, fucking add more raids. And so, with Eldon, it was like, all right, well, we can provide players with additional like group content that also felt like a dungeon crawl. At the time, everybody was like, oh man, what if EQ actually felt like a dungeon crawl instead of like just camping? And we're like, okay, cool, because everybody was very bummed on camping and people were bummed on grinding. So we're like, oh, cool. Well, we'll put in instances and it'll work kind of like Anarchy Online solo instance, but you could do it in groups, and that'll allow us to do things like put in traps and allow us to do things like, put in interactive objects. And when you clear a dungeon, it's really cleared, right? And so, those were all the things that fed into what we were thinking there. And it gave us the ability to make more difficult raids. And even things like the graveyard that we put in for pop, the idea was, if we have the ability to basically have your corpses be spit out in a graveyard, can we make the raids even harder and make it so that they're even more complex, and basically make it so that when you wipe, there's a full reset and we don't have to worry about people re-aggroing shit when they're going in to like, do corpse recovery and all this other stuff. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot there. We didn't realize that people would basically be relegated to grinding, the same sort of group dungeons over and over and over again as part of like, heroic super ranch flavored mythic plus or something at some point. Like, we didn't know that a lot of things would play out the way they did, but that's what happens when you're working on stuff 20 years ago. You can get a lot out of just doing some GM driven event quests every once in a while. It's super fun. Absolutely agree. So that's nice as well. Let's see what's Bunny saying. Part of this spell in my brain lately keeps telling me to play Swig and I don't really want to. Old school RuneScape has a few things where while the activity is in progress, there's a door or magical barrier stopping you from entering, but you can still watch from the outside and have a peek option on the door that tells you how many people are in there. Yeah, I think there's something to that idea of controlling a space, but it not being an instance, and it's playing by the world's rules, right? Like respawn times and all that stuff. I think there's something there. I think that's worth playing with. Instancing that allows multiple simultaneous it's in the name, right? Multiple instances of the same content to be completed simultaneously is a no-go for us. Impact VR said, you worked on original EQ? No, I worked on EQ from basically fixing bugs around like Velius era through Omens of War, but not Gates of Discord. If you look in the about on my description here, it actually lists every single thing I worked on except for M&M, I think. Graveyards and stuff were cool, but it took away a lot of the unique flavor of SK's Necros locate corpse abilities. Yeah, I think at the time, Fish, we also said that it wouldn't be used everywhere and all the time. So yeah, I don't know. Have I checked out Digital Wasteland Gaming's YouTube videos? He's a new EQ player documenting his experience on P99. They're really good. Yeah, that sounds great, Thacker. Let me check that out. So, YouTube Digital Wasteland. Let's see. Digital Wasteland Gaming. Well, that search did not do what I wanted it to do. It's basically just, everything's just Wasteland. So I'll go into YouTube. There's the YouTubes. I will. Digital Wasteland Gaming. Oh, great. Oh, cool. These look really fun. How long are they individually? All right, I'm definitely going to be checking these out over the weekend. Any secrets that you knew of that players never found? Nope. As far as I know, players found everything. But the fact that so many people ask that question is I think important to what we're trying to achieve with Monsters and Memories. It's I think it's a nice goal to have, to be able to look back in 20 years when somebody asks that question, or be able to look back when in 20 years someone asks that question and we're like, yeah, there's all sorts of shit you guys still haven't found yet. Okay, you're off to work, Coding Caffeine. I've got to wrap up here as well because I'm hitting the 3-hour mark. This was not the style of stream that I was anticipating, but I still had a lot of fun. Hopefully you got some value out of it. I was a bit more ranty than usual. Apologies to all of you that disagree vehemently with me. Vehemently. I can't speak English anymore. I swear it's because I'm living in Germany, but I really can't speak German worth a shit either. So I think it's just the more I stream, the less articulate I am. So yeah, I appreciate you guys being here. And those of you that are new, be sure to check out our website and join our Discord. There's like 900 plus of you in Discord now, which is really cool for us. We have a lot of these same discussions there. So don't feel like if it didn't get talked about in the stream, you can't talk about it. I'm just one of many people streaming. So you can, 950 now. Nice. We got Nick and Pattis and Goblin and Zukin streaming as well. If you go to our YouTube, you can see VODs from pretty much all of those folks. And yeah, it's I like the new earlier streaming time. I'm glad it's working for most of you. We'll keep it up. I may shift it an hour later in the future, but for now, this is fine. Impact PR said I'm playing P99, just started exploring Plane of Mischief. It was a shame they made it so inaccessible back in the day. A lot of awesome stuff there, I appreciate. Yeah, but it's cool because it's memorable and you're getting to check it out now. Yeah, so everybody is saying goodbye. Isan, I'm glad that you're able to check this out before your hikes. Happy to be here in the morning for folks in the US. And somebody asked earlier, yes, I am in Germany. Let's see. So thank you, everybody. Don't forget to sign up for our mailing list. I think we're like creeping up on like 1,500 there as well. So all of that stuff is helpful. It's a good indicator to see who is, enjoying what we're doing and interested to see what happens next. So new class poll soon. Maybe a new poll. I don't know if class, but maybe something. Let's figure something out there. Hit us up in Discord with thoughts on that. And I'm going to go for now, but I'll be back Tuesday at the latest. Keep an eye out for everybody else's streams. If you're in our Discord, you'll be notified when someone's got a stream that's kicking off. All right. Bye-bye for now. Have a great weekend.